Welcome to the Drew Allen Show, everyone. This is, of course, your host, Drew Allen, your millennial minister of truth. I am back behind the microphone, and I could not be more excited to be here with you. Honestly, I hope you had a really restful holiday, a Christmas period, and New Year. I know that I am just revved up. I'm excited about this new year. Something has happened with me, and it's just different. I'm not typically a New Year's Revolution person, but there's a lot I want to accomplish, a lot of self-improvement, related to just being a husband and father and somebody who has to work out here in the real world. And so I'm just thrilled. And we're off to such an amazing start. I mean, the capture of Maduro was like a Christmas present for me. I don't think much about Christmas presents anymore because I've got two young kids, almost 3-year-old, and actually my youngest is turning 1 on Saturday. Happy birthday to her soon. And I woke up to that news and I was ecstatic. And, I talked about this on my YouTube channel. And, I just encourage you, go ahead. I just started there as well. Some updates. It's at Drew Thomas Allen on YouTube. That's the page that we're starting up there. But I want to get into this because I want to talk about what a visionary president Donald Trump is. And many people don't give him the credit that, frankly, he deserves. And I want to compare him to someone named Thomas Jefferson, our third president, because Thomas Jefferson was also a visionary. This is a person who orchestrated the purchase of the Louisiana Territory, the Louisiana Purchase, which overnight expanded the U.S. territory. It doubled it. And he was looking ahead to the future, Western expansion. Napoleon Bonaparte, if you remember that name. He was the emperor at the time. He'd crowned himself over in France. And he was very smart and strategic in taking that. Can you imagine the United States today if we didn't have half our country because of the Louisiana Purchase? I can't. But, every generation, they produce these leaders who manage the moment. And there are a rare few who see beyond, right now, the present. They just are reactionary. Visionaries are not reactionary. Visionaries, they anticipate. They see the threats. They anticipate the threats, and they address them before they become problematic. And America's greatness has been shaped by these individuals who come along who are visionaries. That's why we're in the position we are today. And, Jefferson understood something that modern politicians and many Americans who think that history started today, right? Well, these individuals often forget that, geography is destiny. Power and security, I would add, follows land and resources and access. And Trump has never, one thing I've always admired about Trump is that he does not think in 4-year election cycles. He thinks long term. He thinks in terms of sovereignty, in terms of national security, in terms of leverage and future threats. And I introduce all this because I want to talk about Greenland. I want to talk about Venezuela and how these relate to world affairs. I want to address some of the shallow thinking out there because it's important. And we need to be specific and direct about how we define what America First really means. America First does not and has never meant isolationism. It has never meant retreat. It means exceptionalism, American exceptionalism. This belief that the United States must preserve its strategic advantage before, right, not after, before adversaries can exploit weaknesses. And that is what Trump is doing right now. He understands the energy war. He understands the war for technology, of AI, all of these things that are coalescing right now in this modern era. And, we are in a vulnerable time, just like we have been before, because we have a lot of adversaries out there that do understand this. And they don't have a bunch of leftists screaming, trying to destroy their countries and bring them down. Now, I'm not defending these enemies out there, the Chinas and Russias and Cubas of the world, but particularly China. These are run by dictators, but they're uniquely focused on dominance. And their dominance means destroying us and weakening us. And Jefferson didn't ask Europe's permission to secure America's frontier. He was America first. Trump doesn't ask and doesn't need to ask global elites for approval before he defends American interest either. So this is where I want to introduce the conversation about Greenland. To the media, to Democrats, to the left, Trump's interest in Greenland was mocked. They viewed it as some sort of joke. Oh, what an idiot. But to serious strategists, people with brains, people who understand history, who understand the future, who understand the challenges that we face right now. And I want to say one thing before I move on with this. One of the problems with the Biden administration, and there were obviously an infinite amount, we could spend all day, all year talking about them, is that for those 4 years of the auto-pen administration of Joe Biden, we did not take any of the actual threats that we face serious. You notice the Democrats never talk about China as an enemy. Now, they focus exclusively on Russia to the extent that they love their corruption in Ukraine, and they want to protect that at all costs. But China is the greatest adversary we have because they have resources and they have a lot of people and they have a strong military. So look, Greenland sits at the crossroads of the Arctic. This is a region that has been, and many people haven't noticed this, but it's a region that's rapidly becoming the next theater of global competition. Ice has melted over there. Shipping lanes have opened up. You've got rare earth minerals that are accessible in that region. You've got military positioning that's becoming decisive. And who has been moving there? China and Russia. Trump sees what Jefferson saw centuries ago. If America doesn't secure strategic ground early, it's going to pay for it later. Whether it's in blood, in treasure, lost influence, all of the above, that's what we're talking about. So when these critics out there are mocking Donald Trump and laughing at Donald Trump's worldview, they're repeating the same mistake that Jefferson's own critics made. Vision is not impulsiveness. And these people mistake strength for recklessness. And let's face it, these people are globalists. They don't believe that America deserves to be the greatest country on the face of the earth. Part of what motivates them to bring this country down a peg while lifting up other nations, especially our enemies, is to level the playing field. That is not America first, and that's not American exceptionalism. It is our government's role to look out for this country exclusively. They are supposed to selfishly look out for the needs of America, period. And that'll play into the Somali stuff we'll get into in a little bit too. But these detractors of Trump, these critics who are mocking him, who are in fact the idiots themselves, they ignore that the uncomfortable truth, I guess, for them, that America's greatest advances were made by leaders willing to think decades ahead. So the idea that the United States would seek strategic control over Greenland, that's not radical, it's not imperial, okay? And it's not un-American either. Okay, this is the opposite. It's actually quintessentially American. That's what Donald Trump is doing right now. He is making America America again. And that's obviously uncomfortable for the left because they do not embody American values. They don't embody the greatness that resonates within many of you and great Americans throughout history. From the very beginning, the United States has expanded. And we didn't do it out of conquest for conquest's sake. We did it to secure trade routes. We did it to secure our national defense, to establish long-term strategic dominance. That's why we've expanded. We bought Louisiana to control what? Any historians out there? The Mississippi River, and to pave the way for Western expansion. We acquired Florida, right, to secure our southern flank. We purchased Alaska to dominate the Arctic frontier at that time, to keep Russia in check. Every single major territorial expansion has followed the exact same logic, folks. You know, if geography is going to determine power, America must control geography. And Greenland fits in that tradition. So the Arctic's not frozen out of geopolitics anymore, as I mentioned before, with melting ice and opening trade routes, shipping lanes. You know, these have drastically shortened trade routes between North America, Europe, and Asia. And the reality is, you know, with convenience comes from air travel, right? From the ability to rapidly and quickly access other parts of the world. With that convenience comes danger. You know, part of the reason the United States was able to thrive as it has throughout its history was geography. We were insulated and protected by oceans. That's unlike Europe, where people are constantly at war, going across each other. That wasn't as big of a threat here. But now that you have the world getting smaller because of technological advances, that's no longer the case. So if you look at the globe, all right, not a flat map, look at a globe. No flat earthers out there. We're round. You've got intercontinental ballistic missile paths between Russia, China, and North America, and these pass directly over the Arctic. Greenland sits at the very crossroads of these early warning radar, missile interception, you know, space tracking routes. And that's why the U.S. has a base in Greenland, by the way. We used that base during World War II. It was strategic then even. So that's why we have long had a military presence there. This is, you know, physics, I guess. You know, and then the third reason, of course, you have rare earth minerals. Greenland holds these vast, largely untapped deposits of rare earth mineral elements. And these are critical to modern technology, to weapon systems, to semiconductors, right? Renewable energy, and AI infrastructure, which demands so much energy. And China has been dominating that supply chain. Remember the chip issues with Taiwan and China? We weren't making semiconductors here. We weren't making the chips here. We had big problems with our cars. And yeah, some of this was supply chain because of the COVID shutdown and so on and so forth. But these are real problems. And so if we're going to allow a hostile power to control all those resources, that would be a strategic failure of historic proportions for the United States of America. You know, so this isn't colonialism, as the left would try and say it. This isn't imperialism. This is common sense. We did not become a superpower, folks, by apologizing for our interests. We became a superpower because we thought ahead, sometimes decades ahead. And securing Greenland is not about domination. It's about stability. It's about protection, deterrence, preventing these adversaries, China, Russia, Cuba, Iran, all who have the same desire to destroy us, to hurt this country, to replace us. We've got to secure Greenland to prevent our adversaries who also want Greenland from filling a vacuum that we're too timid to occupy. And the days of timidity are over, folks. Trump's not timid. I'm not timid. I hope you're not timid. I hope in this new year, this is the bug you're catching. This excitement about what it means to be American, this excitement about our future. I'm so excited about our future, folks. Doesn't mean it's without risk. Doesn't mean we can just, you know, float. But there's so much opportunity, so much abundant opportunity out there if we just take it. So, the actual radical idea is not trying to acquire Greenland in a serious way. The radical idea is actually pretending that the Arctic doesn't matter while Russia and China are racing to control it. That's the reality. Trump did something today. I don't know if you saw his on Truth Social or his post. One of the big problems with the housing crisis, one of them, there's many, but one of them is these giant corporations and financial groups, BlackRock, et cetera, hedge funds, and so on and so forth that are buying up private housing. And Donald Trump is proposing forbidding that because homes belong to individual Americans, not to these corporations. And it's bold. And I want to talk about Venezuela in a second too. But first, what do these billionaires, 4 major banks, and a legendary 72-year-old investor all have in common? They're all making the same shocking prediction. You know what that is? Gold is headed for $10,000 or more. Goldman Sachs says gold will surge 20%. JP Morgan says 25%. And one respected economist now believes the U.S. government could deliberately raise gold's official price to help pay off the national debt. And the world's wealthiest players are already making their move. Now you can see exactly what they're seeing for free. Our friends at American Alternative Assets just released a powerful new report. It's called The Surprising Case for $10,000 Gold. And it breaks down the hidden signals, the central bank gold buying spree, and how smart Americans are protecting their retirement with gold right now. You can go to cloutgold.com to download it for free, or you can call 855-803-GOLD. That's cloutgold.com or 855-803-GOLD. Don't wait, folks. The window is closing fast. Be a visionary. Now, I want to talk about Venezuela. And actually, I would encourage you, go to my YouTube page at Drew Thomas Allen. There's only one video there. I just started, a couple days ago. But I just go off and I discuss Venezuela and, how it made me feel, obviously, and why I'm happy about it. Now, look, we've got to be cautious in everything we do. In life, with opportunities, there's always the possibility that things could go south. But it doesn't stop you from doing the right thing or pursuing those things. Fear cannot guide you. And what Trump did in Venezuela was absolutely the right thing. And he sent a signal to the rest of our enemies, by the way. Hey, if we can take Maduro in the middle of the night, you better get in line and you better check yourself before you wreck yourself. So, Venezuela is one of those things where it reminds me of the way people think about Greenland, because, look, this is not something our government has talked about enough until Trump. Just like I was saying with the Biden regime, they didn't talk about China. They pretended like it wasn't a threat whatsoever when absolutely it was. But, in the past, recently, our adversaries, again, like China and Russia and Iran, they had deep energy and security ties with Caracas, with Venezuela. And it gave them also footholds to U.S. shores. Now, this is where the Monroe Doctrine comes in. The idea that strategically we have to protect and defend our hemisphere. And Venezuela was a national security problem for us. It's not just about the drugs. It's not. There's a whole host of problems that we have had with Venezuela. It's a national security problem, and it's not a hypothetical one. And so, the U.S. now, under Trump, he's announced we have moved to control up to 30 to 50 million barrels of Venezuelan oil. We're planning to sell it on the global market and use the proceeds to stabilize the region under American oversight. That was according to The Guardian. And this is a power play, not just a policy choice. And this is going to directly affect global energy markets. This is going to affect U.S. leverage over our rival powers. And, look, what's amazing to me? I mean, where are the Democrats in this? Obviously, they're obviously opposed to what we did in Venezuela for a bunch of made up reasons that have to do more with hating Trump than anything else and wanting this country and the Trump administration to fail. But, Joe Biden put a bunch of sanctions on Russia after they invaded Ukraine. This war has gone on forever. It needs to end. Never should have started in the first place. But one of the reasons Russia was able to maintain relative stability to continue funding their war against Ukraine is because they were buying oil, think of it like a restaurant, at a wholesale price, and they were going and selling it to China and others for a premium, and they were willing to pay it. And so they were using that Venezuelan oil in their deals with Venezuela to prop up their economy. But this is going to give us regional stability if we can pull this off correctly, of course, in Latin America. And it's going to have a great impact on deterring and stopping drug trafficking and transnational criminal networks. I mean, Venezuela is kind of, ground zero in Latin America, for corruption, but for a lot of these dangerous elements related to narco trafficking. And, now with the U.S. controlling the oil exports there, American companies and American markets are poised to step in there, not just to sell oil, by the way, but to reshape the energy landscape around Venezuela. And this matters a lot because Russia and China, as I said, they have vested energy interests in Caracas. And, seizing these Venezuelan-linked tankers, these are already upset and strained relations with Russia. Gee, I wonder why. They depend upon this. So, why are the Democrats not supportive of this if it's hurting Russia? I thought Russia was the greatest enemy on the planet. Isn't that all the Democrats wanted to talk about for a long time? Russia, Russia, Russia for the past 20, not 20. They loved Russia before they hated Russia. The Obama administration was the best thing that ever happened to Russia, both of his terms. So, this is about energy leverage. It's not just about tanks and troops. Now, obviously, we've got to be careful. We've got to have a plan there. What's happening now is, a little bit worrisome. You've got a power vacuum that's opened up, and, it could either stabilize or destabilize the region. Now, Trump does have a plan there. Don't buy this baloney from people that, this is just like Iraq and Afghanistan. It's not at all that. But, you've got apparently supporters, and I don't think there are many of them, but you've got supporters of the, socialist, if you want to call it that, regime. And you've got the, I don't know what she's called, the VP, the underling of Maduro that's now, stepped in and she's trying to take over. And so, there's issues to be resolved there. But, Maduro's hilarious. He was just arraigned in court, and he's out there, saying to the judge, I'm a man of God. I'm a man of God. He's such a good person. But you would think he's the way the Democrats talk about Maduro, he's a fantastic person. They love Maduro. They hated Maduro, but now, that Trump went in there with Delta Force and took him. Now they love Maduro. You love Maduro. So you need to remember this about Venezuela. Now we need to be concerned about what happens there now, but, this is a strategic contest with very real geopolitical stakes. And whether you agree with the tactics or not, the outcomes there, these are going to be felt in boardrooms and battlegrounds for years to come. Delcy Rodriguez, by the way, that's what I was trying to. So Maduro's former vice president, that's who it was. I say former vice president because he's no more. But Delcy Rodriguez, so she's declared herself the interim leader there. She's imposed a state of emergency, and you've got these armed regime loyalists and some paramilitary groups out there. Their version of Antifa. They're patrolling Caracas, and apparently they're cracking down on dissent, kind of like what they were trying to do in Iran, which is a whole other situation too. So public order there is very fragile. And, look, a lot of this is going to come down to the people of Venezuela. It's going to come down to the people of Venezuela. I want to get into Somali fraud and spend an extensive amount of time on that issue. Because Somali fraud in Minnesota, the state of Minnesota, this is just the tip of the iceberg, folks. I live in California. I guarantee you that Gavin Newsom is even more corrupt than Governor Tim Walz, who, by the way, is not running for re-election, which might as well be an admission of guilt. And he put out some hilarious statement, hilarious to me. Obviously, he plays the victim here, right? He's overseen this. He's responsible for this Somali fraud because he looked the other way. He was told about this fraud that was happening for years and years and years. And actually what ended up happening is Governor Walz and other people in the administration that depend upon the Somali votes, who are basically in on this game, this corruption, this ring of fraud, Al Capone on steroids. Well, you know, you know, Tim Walz, you know, I've got to step down because, you know, my focus has to be fighting this corruption, and I can't work on the campaign and fight the corruption. What were you doing for the past 2 terms while this was going on? Oh, now I'm too busy fighting the corruption. What? You know, I just want to get into this with some media I've got. Most of my clips have to do with this. And then I want to get into Mamdani and his, you know, tenant czar there with price controls. I mean, by the way, I hope you understand, you cannot hide anymore, Democrats. We know that you are communists. Call yourself socialist Democrats. Call yourself whatever you want, progressives. You are communists. Mamdani is who you're holding up, and Mamdani is a communist, and I will prove it to you on this show today, folks. But first, they had a hearing on Capitol Hill, I guess today it was, grilling people related to this fraud in Minnesota, you know, members of government. And I've got one clip I want to play. I'm not going to play a bunch of other ones. This one's 2 minutes, 11 seconds, but it is a beatdown. A beatdown. I want you to listen to Representative Brandon Gill shut down this witness. Watch this.
Again, thank you for being here. Let me ask you, does large-scale Somali immigration make Minnesota stronger or weaker?
Certainly stronger.
Certainly stronger. Do you know what percentage of Somali-headed households in Minnesota are on food stamps?
No.
54%. Do you know what that number is for native Minnesota-headed households?
Well, to be clear, a majority of the...
It's 7%. There's a big difference between 54% and 7%, is there not?
Excuse me, sir, could I answer the question?
Let me move on. We've got a lot of questions here. What percentage of Somali-headed households in Minnesota are on Medicaid?
I don't know.
It's 73%. Do you know what that number is for Minnesota native households?
Again, you're using the phrase Minnesota native households, but the majority...
The number is 18%. That's quite an astounding difference. I think we would agree.
Can I answer the question, please?
Let me ask you one more, and then we can go on to that. What percentage of Somali-headed households are on welfare in general?
I don't know.
It's 81%. What about, let me just ask you, after 10 years of being in the United States, what percentage of Somali immigrant households continue to be on welfare?
I don't know.
The number is 78%. So even after 10 years, 78% of Somali immigrant households continue to be on welfare. Do you know what that number is for native Minnesota-headed households?
Again, you're using
non-Somali immigrant-headed households.
If I can just answer the question, when you're using the phrase native Minnesotans, the majority of Somali Minnesotans are as Minnesotan as any of us. They were born in the United States. It's only 8,000 of the 108,000 Somali.
Nevertheless, the welfare usage is astoundingly different. Let me ask you again, does that make Minnesota stronger or weaker?
Again, I'd like the opportunity to answer the question here.
Go for it.
Folks, did you hear those statistics? That is astounding. And this is what we're fighting back against, what I'm fighting back against. America is not the world's trash can. Do you know why we have immigration? It's to make this country better, to improve it. And statistically, he's telling you right there, after 10 years of being here, 70-something% of these Somalians are still on welfare. And this is what the Democrat Party is doing, and nobody can deny it now. They love these immigrants and illegals that come here into this country from third world countries because it's this disgusting relationship whereby the immigrants, refugees, in this case, Somali refugees, they hose the American taxpayer and they commit fraud as well to the tune of $9 billion, they believe right now so far, $9 billion just in the state of Minnesota alone. And in return for impoverishing and robbing native-born Americans, non-Somalians, non-refugees, etc., they vote for Democrats. And so they bring these people in, they put them on welfare, they destroy this country, keep giving them money, and in return, they get a vote. This is replacement theory, folks. This is called replacement theory. I didn't come up with it. The Democrats are proud of it. They have announced it. This is what replacement theory looks like. I don't care about, and it does get racist from them, not us. It matters nothing to me that Somalians have black skin. What matters to me with the Somalians is that they come here and they don't contribute to this economy. They don't contribute to the country. And the narrative from the left is a lie. This is a nation. We need these immigrants, a nation of immigrants. No, we're not a nation of immigrants, broadly speaking, just across the board, as if every single immigrant in this country is exactly the same. No, not all immigrants are created equal. The immigrants who came here at the turn of the century, the 20th century, the early 1900s, came here with nothing and there was no welfare state. Those immigrants were amazing. So were immigrants before that came here asking for nothing in return but opportunity. And these people came here distinctly, specifically because they wanted to be American. Somalians go up there and speak and they run for office and they talk about representing Somalia and Somalians. No, you represent Americans if you come here. And this is the problem. No assimilation, no love for this country. They want to come here and rip us off, and I'm tired of it. It is not the role of our government to import everyone around the world, and the barrier for entry is so stupidly low that it's simply, I don't want to live where I live, and I want to live in the United States of America. I don't want to be American, but I just want to come there because I can do better off of welfare than I can in my country. I'm sorry, that's not it. We are the top of the food chain. We are the Major League Baseball. All right? We're not AAA or AA or whatever you want to call it. We are the top tier. And there should be a high barrier for entrance to this country. What are you going to do to make this country a better place? No. We are not here as Americans who have shed our blood throughout our history to create the greatest nation in the history of the world. We don't exist so that you can come here and take our tax dollars from me, who works for a living and has a family to feed. No. How are you going to come here and contribute? But we don't ask immigrants to contribute. Democrats don't want them to contribute. The only contribution Democrats want is throwbacks to their campaigns from the fraud schemes they're overseeing and looking the other way. And they want the vote. That's it. That day is done. That ship has sailed. America is back. America is back. Daniel Volpe, I just want to get into a comment here on Facebook. Is this really Naomi Wolf's site? If so, did you actually go to Trumpster? Daniel, where have you been? Have you not been following Dr. Wolf for a long time? She saw the light long ago. She's one of the greatest advocates for just liberty, period. She has a functioning brain. She's a brilliant woman. You should pay more attention to her, Daniel Volpe. You'd learn something. Okay, so we played that clip, right? Astounding. These people never get off welfare, and obviously they're committing massive fraud. Now, there's no accountability whatsoever. Now, since I think it was 2018 is the date, we're talking about Medicaid alone. There are other government programs that Somali refugees and Somalians who live here, whatever, however long they've been here, so the Somalian community has been committing fraud all over the place. And Medicaid alone, from 2018, just in Minnesota alone, $18 billion has been paid out. They're saying that $9 billion is fraud. Do you understand that number? $9 billion. Half of the Medicaid in Minnesota that's given out is fraud. And it's fraud committed by the Somali community. But, you know, Keith Ellison, the Attorney General of Minnesota, that's no big deal. Listen to this.
Not that fraud is not a problem. Of course it is a problem. And of course we have to prosecute it. And of course we have been prosecuting it. But
have you done enough, General, to do so? I mean, one of the claims is that there has been hundreds of millions of dollars, but now there are some estimates that there could be $9 billion or more. And Noam was just suggesting they took hundreds of people off the street who were involved in fraud. Are you confident your office has done enough?
Of course we've done enough, and we're doing more every single day. This is a political matter. This is not a serious thing. And I tell you,
this is not a serious thing. You have the Attorney General of Minnesota who's saying that the $9 billion plus in fraud in that state, half of Medicaid fraud, that's just not a big, it's just a political thing, folks. If you did this in the private sector, you think you could just go and tell the judge? It's just, this is nothing. What are you talking about? No big deal. It's just $9 billion of taxpayer dollars in Minnesota alone. Who cares? Who cares? Now, I want to expose the game here for you, right? I sort of explained this to you a little bit about why this is happening and why the Democrat Party in Minnesota has looked the other way to allow this to happen. I've got a Somalian man named Mohammed who took to the podium in Maine, and he delivered a warning to Democrats. And that warning, as you'll hear, is if you keep talking about the fraud taking place, the entire voting community is going to abandon Democrats. Listen, Muhammad.
My name is Mohammed. I'm speaking today on behalf of the Somali community in Lewiston. Some of you sitting here today, we voted for you. We elected you to protect our community interests, not creating division or go after one elected member from our community. This narrative, if this narrative continues, our community will be forced to re-examine our relationship or political relationship, including our relationship with the Democratic Party and who will be voting in the future. This is not a threat.
So this is effectively a hostile takeover of our cities and our states. So you're importing a bunch of immigrants who love this country so deeply that they're holding it hostage. Now, Muhammad there, just so you know about his background, he's charged with stealing a firearm. He's provided a false address to run for his seat. He lied about the address and reasoning. The address he gave was condemned. He was raided for drugs. And he sits on the Lewiston School Board. I'm fed up with this, folks. This isn't your country, Muhammad. It's our country, and you need to be respectful of this country. And if you can't be respectful, get the HE double hockey sticks out. That's it. Very simple message. Very, very simple message. Now, let's get into the Communist Democrat Party and what's going on in New York City. You've got radical leadership now. You've got ideological capture. You've got economic insanity. I want to explain why this isn't progressive. It's openly collectivist, and it's anti-American. This is what happens when ideology replaces competence. But I do want to give Mamdani credit, because soon I'm going to play for you a clip of C. Weaver. This is the new communist mayor's. She runs his office to protect tenants. Unbelievable. But Mamdani has done something decent for New York City. I know you're shocked, Drew Allen. What are you saying? The millennial minister of truth. Will you tell your first lie on this show today? Mamdani has done quite a bit to help bring the mentally ill off of the streets of New York City. He has taken the mentally ill and he has put them in his administration. And I suppose the silver lining is there is some good in that, getting the mentally ill off the streets and in his administration. So I want you to listen to C. Weaver, who, like I said, runs Mayor Zohran Mamdani's office to protect tenants. Listen to her a few years ago.
I think the reality is that for centuries, we've really treated property as an individualized good and not a collective good. And we are going to transitioning to treating it as a collective good and towards a model of shared equity will require that we think about it differently. And it will mean that families, especially white families, but some POC families who are homeowners as well, are going to have a different relationship to property than the one that we currently have.
Joseph Stalin could not have said it better himself, nor could Karl Marx. There is C. Weaver. You know, we have to reimagine our relationship with property rights. Property rights are the backbone of this nation. Private property rights. And she rejects it completely. Now, I'm sure you'll be shocked to learn this, but that white communist whose mother is a university professor, well, her parents own a $1.6 million house in Tennessee, I believe. So there you have, just like Mom Donnie, one of the people, his parents are millionaires. And you have C. Weaver, who is fighting for the people. Her parents own a $1.6 million house. I mean, I don't know. Some of you who are older than me, right? I'm 38 years old. I'll be 39 in February. Even in my life, I cannot believe that this is being spoken publicly, proudly, and people are being elected to office that are openly espousing communism. Communism, which has killed more than 60 million people in modern history. And this is what they're espousing. Incredible. So there you have her admitting she's a communist. And now that there's some blowback, some backlash about this, because believe it or not, it's still not quite popular to tell people you're a communist in America. Not yet. Listen to her try and backtrack, or not.
Something you'd said on Twitter about home ownership being a tool of white supremacy. I wanted to give you a chance to respond. You're not out of your mind, right?
I don't think I'm out of my mind. Okay. I think that some of those things are certainly not how I would say things today and are regretful. But I do think my sort of decades of experience fighting for more affordable housing sort of stands on its own.
Oh, would you like to apologize? No, I wouldn't say some of those things like that. Had I known I was going to be in this position that would come back to bite me in the butt, I wouldn't have said it. I would still do it. I would still be a communist, but I wouldn't just tell people I'm a communist, Now, he's attacking private property owners in particular. Now, look, New York City absolutely has a housing crisis. It has a housing crisis. But that housing crisis is because of Democrat leadership. That's what's amazing about and I would encourage you, I wrote an article about this on my Substack. Go ahead and subscribe, drewallen.substack.com. You can check it out there. I really address the economic realities of what leftists promote with their policies. And of course, their policies are responsible for the misery and the problems. And then they go and blame the people who are forced to carry them out, like the landlords. But there's a great post on X, and it's from a guy named AP. You can find him average_New York, NY_guy. But he writes, who will build NYC if builders are the enemy? And I want to read some pool quotes here from this and kind of go through this with you. So who are these people that own the real estate? They're people who bought their first buildings with all their savings, carried debt through rate hikes, fixed things themselves when there was no money to hire, and stayed in New York through high crime, recessions, 2008, COVID, rising taxes, insurance increases, and an ever-expanding book of laws and codes. None of them were promised fairness before they started, and none of them were protected from risk. And that's what he says is missing from Zohran Mamdani's worldview. Mamdani's never built anything. He's never signed a personal guarantee. He's never met payroll, never carried a mortgage through a rough month. That's right. Mamdani has never even run a halal stand. And I love halal stands in New York City. I've only gotten sick once or twice. But he notes, Mamdani has only operated in a political world where consequences are abstract and other people absorb the risk. It is also why his message resonates with certain types of voters. The people demanding housing reforms are not bad people. They're frustrated renters who feel like the system is rigged against them. But frustration doesn't change math. Housing is hard. Ownership is a very slow process. Building anything meaningful in New York City takes years of stress and debt. The people calling for landlord policies often want the outcome without the grind, stability, risk, and the reward without years of sweating that every responsible adult who succeeded here had to endure. It doesn't work like that. Citywide vacancy in New York City sits around 1.4%, a level considered an emergency. Median rents keep rising, and it's outrageous. Manhattan near $4,800, Brooklyn around $3,800 a month. And there's already a thick layer of regulation. The reason is obvious. Supply has not kept up. Supply and demand, folks, this is an economics 101. The city needs hundreds of thousands more over the next decade just to stabilize prices, but New York City adds roughly 30,000 units in a good year. At the same time, construction costs here are among the highest in the country. Financing is difficult. Insurance is wildly expensive. Mamdani's proposals take that fragile situation and they make it worse. When you cap upside while leaving downside unlimited, rational people stop participating. Developers are not arguing on X. Leaders aren't protesting. They simply reallocate. Projects stop coming up. Renovations are postponed. New construction dies before shovel hits the ground. Mamdani is offering emotional satisfaction, not solutions. He tells voters that prices are high because someone else is greedy, not because the city has spent decades making housing harder and almost impossible to build. You know, tenants aren't going to win with the rent control. That's the point. Buildings are going to continue to deteriorate. Supply is going to tighten further. Rents are going to rise anyway. And the result of Kami Mamdani's policies is going to be a worsened wealth gap. This is what communism leads to. There'll be very wealthy people who can buy condos, and then there will be people stuck in these rent-controlled apartments, and there won't be enough of them. So if you don't incentivize landowners to keep up the apartments, you're going to have deteriorating apartments. That's why you have this situation to begin with in New York City. It's just an astonishing thing, folks. I mean, liberalism, progressivism, which is a false name, it's regressivism. It doesn't work. And so many people, maybe some of you listening to me now, absolutely you're good people. Some of the biggest hearts that I know are some of the liberals I've known in my life. But the problem is emotion is not a replacement for reality. You know, emotion is not a replacement for actual results. And it's not the property manager's fault. It's not the owner's fault that this situation is happening in New York City. There's a supply problem. You have to cut red tape. You have to incentivize people to build more apartments in the city. It's math. It's economics. So if you're going to have more rent-controlled apartments, well, guess what? You're going to decrease the supply that's already, you know, there's not enough housing, but you're going to have people convert it to condos so they can make money. And it's unfair. You know, this is why I'm so sick of attacking people who are successful in this country. Blood, sweat, to acquire these properties and build something for yourself, and you are having to live under the tyrannical regime of Democrats in New York City who are doing everything they can to punish you for that success. You know, these property owners, they don't want people to live in misery. They really don't. And why is it that the property owners are de facto evil all the time? The contributors, the creators are de facto evil, and all the others are good. It's just so outrageous. But look, if you're paying property taxes on a building that you own in New York City, and New York City's telling you can only take X amount of rent and it doesn't cover the cost, well, guess what? You're not going to spend money on that building. Capitalism works. Capitalism is why we're the greatest country on the face of the earth. It's just so sad, folks, to see this happen to people in this country. It breaks my heart. It really does. But I thought that was a great thing there. Look, I want to finish up by just letting you know something. See, I've got my book behind me, For Christ and Country: The Martyrdom of Charlie Kirk. Amazon censored it for 3 weeks. I am now the #1 book in the LGBTQ plus demographic studies category. And, I'm ranked like 5,000 on Amazon right now, which is okay, not bad. And that's just since this censorship lifted. But, no, it's not. Yeah. I mean, am I trolling the left being in that category? A little bit. I am the #1 book in the LGBTQ plus. How do you think people feel about that? I hope they feel good. But actually, I address transgenderism in a very straightforward, serious way in this book. So that's actually why it's in that category. But I encourage you to pick it up. Now you can get it on Amazon. There's still a 3-week delay, I think, on getting the book, but it's very important. I was Charlie Kirk's publicist for a spell, and his death had a very powerful impact on me. Not because I knew him well, I did not. I was like millions of other people who were just shocked by what happened. And there's been no accountability for the rhetoric from the left and the violence that it results in. And I want accountability. This country needs it. I demand it. We need a national conversation about the left in this country and the violence they've unleashed on it. An ICE agent had to shoot a woman who was trying to run him over with her car and kill him in Minnesota. I mean, this has to stop. And we need to understand the root cause. And I do understand the root cause, and I try and explain the root cause, but it's also a book of hope. It's a book that shows the path forward. We deeply miss Charlie Kirk. And it's unbelievable that his family was robbed of a father and husband. I have 2 young kids the same age as his, and my heart breaks every time I think about it. But, you and me, we need to step into that void. No one's going to replace Charlie Kirk. There's not a replacement for Charlie Kirk. But you can become, it's about, American exceptionalism is based on our own demand of exceptionalism in ourselves. And I think for me this new year, it's about demanding that of myself. Not settling for where I am. Working harder, not just professionally, but studying issues, becoming a better, more capable person that can articulate these issues, that understands these issues, that studies these issues. And as a Christian, someone who reads my Bible and studies my Bible again. I want to be a better father to my girls. Girl dad. That's me. I want to be a better husband to my wife. I want to be a better leader in my community and my church. And I've just got this fire this year. I've just got this fire, and I think it does relate to Charlie. And thinking about his life and what he accomplished and saying, I've got to demand more of myself, because that's what Charlie's legacy was. It was many things, but one was Charlie Kirk became Charlie Kirk because Charlie Kirk always wanted to improve. He always wanted to become better. And he loved this country, and I love this country, and I know you love this country. Are you the best you can be right now? Are you? If the answer is yes, you're lying. We've got to improve. We've got to fight for this country. We've got to talk to people again. And I don't care about the left anymore and their hatred of me or my opinions and my beliefs, and frankly, the hatred of truth, because that's what ultimately got Charlie. We live in a country that doesn't have a tolerance for the truth. And the left is an ideology of lies. And we have to course correct. So I hope you'll pick up a copy of the book, For Christ and Country. I'm not going to hawk it every episode, but I haven't gotten a chance to talk about it. And frankly, I was very frustrated because I've never been censored before. And I wrote this book because I thought it was important. So I hope you'll keep me in that LGBTQ plus #1 spot. All right, folks. Much love to all of you, truly. Happy New Year. Again, check out my YouTube. I'll be posting there at Drew Thomas Allen. Check out the Substack, drewallen.substack.com. And God bless all of you, truly. Until next time.